What's up, people? Welcome to your one-stop shop for the biggest wrestling stories this week. This is Wrestling Roundup Weekly. My name is Mex, aka WrestleManiac UK, and I'm alongside my co-host Ignacio. And on today's show, we are talking about the reaction to AEW All Out. It was a week ago, but we still need to talk about everything that went down on that show. We'll also talk about obviously the debuts of Adam Cole and Daniel Bryan and the contract offers that they were given to stay in WWE despite choosing not to. Kevin Owens' name has obviously come up in the reports over the last week of someone that is possibly on his way out very soon as well, and maybe over to AEW. So we're going to talk about that. And then obviously SmackDown women voiced their opinions about not being able to be on the MSG show on Friday. Not too happy about that. We'll get into some of the things that were said there and the booking of the SmackDown women's division. And then last but not least, highlights of the week. Firstly, though, please make sure you smash the like button on this video and subscribe to Wrestling Republic on YouTube if you haven't already. Ignacio, we had this time last week we were waiting for All Out to happen. It's happened. Pretty, amazing show, to be completely honest. um what were your thoughts coming out of watching that show?
Well, I mean, I thought it was a pretty solid show. I don't think it was a lot of people are calling it the best pay-per-view of all time and all this mess. I think that's a bit of a stretch. All right.
do
I
you
think it was
think
a
do you
solid
think it's the best AEW pay-per-view of all time?
no.
Okay.
I don't think it's the best AEW pay-per-view this year. It was a solid show. It wasn't bad because I know we talked about how AEW they only got 4 pay-per-views a year, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
they got some special shows in between, but they can't afford to have a bad show. And this wasn't necessarily a bad show. There was some stuff that I absolutely hated and I wish didn't make air and was
Okay.
totally disgusted over. And there was some stuff I really liked, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit. In the highlights, we'll get into it definitely. But I think it was a pretty solid show. And then the follow up with Dynamite and Rampage was pretty good. I think their follow up show with Dynamite was really good. And there was some criticism on that show, which I didn't
Mhm.
understand why. But I thought it was really good.
So
Everything. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go on, sorry, finish what you're saying.
Well, I thought the follow up show of Dynamite was really good
Hmm.
because and everything, and this is typical of most AEW shows, is everything. Just seems like every segment is they're either building somebody or building to something,
Yeah.
which is in direct contrast with what WWE does. And in this show, particular show, the Fallout from All Out was everything was building towards the future, either a particular superstar or a particular somebody they're building, or a match, or the big event at Arthur Ashe. Like everything was building to something. And
Yeah.
of course, I think the criticism comes with maybe some of the timing issues of the show. Some matches ran too long. Some segments should have been a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I just think that overall it was a great follow-up show. Everything led to something. Every segment was good, was solid. There was a couple kerfluffles there or something, things I didn't like or were off. But I mean, overall, it was a really good follow-up show.
Yeah, I agree with that comment definitely. I thought, like, for instance, the MJF segment, they clearly just told him to go out there and piss off these people.
That was
The whole
tremendous. It was absolutely amazing.
it was a great performance from him, and then obviously, like you're saying, that's building up Brian Pillman Jr. So they're building towards something. I think they've got a match announced for the next couple of weeks as well. In that same segment, we saw more strain of the relationship between Wardlow and MJF.
Mm-hmm.
MJF calling Wardlow names and telling him to just stand in the corner and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, great example of, like you said, just every segment means something, and that's what you call must watch TV. Like, you don't want to leave the room because every segment has a purpose. It means something. Something is going to get progressed, or some type of character development is going to take place, and that's important when got a TV show like this and you're trying to build characters. One thing I would like to know, like you said, there were some things on the All Out show that pissed you off, like you weren't happy. So I haven't heard anyone kind of give overly negative stuff. People might say the odd match here or there, but what weren't you happy with the All Out show?
It kind of look what I'm really what I was. I won't mention. I'll wait for one thing to mention it at the end of the show because it ties into one of my highlights
Mm-hmm.
or my highlight of the week. Um, well, like I said before, like everybody thought it was a predictable show, and for the most part, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that there's no issue. I don't have an issue with that. I have my thing is that how they're going to produce the show, how they're going to build it up to the future, so forth, how things are going to end, how things will begin. Here's one thing I really hated, and fuck me, you're making me be redundant and repetitive, but I don't have a fucking choice, man. It's and I'll wholeheartedly admit when I saw this match and I saw the finish with Jericho and MJF, when I saw the finish, what I assumed thought was the finish, I jumped up in glee and ice cream bars went flying everywhere. And I said, yes, thank you. Thank God. Amazing. The perfect finish. The perfect finish. MJF screws over Jericho. He screws over his career in AEW. That's exactly how it should be. And I was going to come on the show and denounce everything I had ever said against Jericho because it was his finish. It was his match. He called the match all the way through. I'm 99.9999% sure of that.
Mm.
And I said, finally, I was going to denounce every article, everything I've said on every article I've written. I was going to denounce everything I've ever said on this show about him. I was going to apologize. And then we get shenanigans. Fuck. A referee comes out and tells, by the way, they buried Audrey in this match too.
Mm.
A referee comes out. Well, I saw his foot on the ropes. Where the fuck were you the rest of the night with all the other shenanigans going on throughout the night? But you come out during the MGF Jericho show saying, I saw this. It's bullshit. It reinforces my narrative that this man is the most selfish individual in professional wrestling. He did nothing to help MJF in the past year. He's done nothing to help anybody in inner circle. Where has FTR been, which I'm going to elaborate later on? Sammy Guevara did nothing to help him whatsoever, did nothing but leech off of MJF. Thank God MJF has the promo skills and the know-how to redeem himself and pull himself out of the fire because that tremendous promo or scene with Brian Pillman Jr. on Dynamite carried him out of the fire and out of the shit of Chris Jericho.
I mean,
that's one thing. That's just one thing. The other thing I'll mention in our highlights.
okay,
But
cool.
I didn't care too much for Statlander and Britt Baker. And I know it. I like Statlander. I don't like her character.
Yeah.
I just think. I don't know if I mentioned this on the last of the prediction show, but I just think for this being the big event it was, I think they should have put a bigger name in there with her. I think they should have had her in there with Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. I think when they announced that land, even I was a bit underwhelmed because there wasn't even much build before it was announced, and it was like, okay, and you know straight away, well, Statlander's not winning.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
I thought CM Punk and Darby Allin, I thought that was a masterpiece. I thought it was great. It went the way it should have gone. I thought that was the best thing on the show. A lot of people disagree. I'll get into that later. Eddie Kingston and Miro. I said it was going to be a smash last week, a squash by Miro, and I'm glad it wasn't because what they put on a tremendous performance as well. And the main event, it wasn't as good as their initial outing
Rampage match,
on the Rampage match, but it was still solid. It was good, and then we got the appearances at the end.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much, yeah. I think for me, the highlight of the show for me, in fact, I'll keep that till later, but um the Chris Jericho stuff, I just want them to be done now. I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying in terms of everything about Jericho and make Jericho make it about himself and stuff, but I am completely bored of this particular feud. I'm happy to see MJF has moved on anyway.
Mhm.
Jericho, yeah, maybe they just keep him off TV until I don't know,
One could
someone
hope.
debuts or something. Or, yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think it was a really good show. The appearances, the debuts, obviously helped take it to another level, helped create a lot of excitement. Um, so yeah, I'm just happy they kind of got back on track. I remember All Out last year wasn't a good show at all. Again, gives them the benefit of the doubt because it was in the pandemic, but they done other pay per views in the pandemic which really were good.
Yeah.
All Out last year wasn't, so I think they've redeemed themselves from a just an All Out point of view. And we'll see. We got this New York Arthur Ashe Stadium Grand Slam they're calling it in the next 2 weeks, and then what is it, Full Gear in November. So they're coming thick and fast.
Oh yeah. Uh, yeah, and like I said on the Dynamite show, everything it seemed every segment is leading up to either the Arthur Ashe show or a feud after, fully leading up to Full Gear. Another segment I was really glad to see, and because they're going to get featured more, was CM Punk. Seems like he's going to enter into a feud with Team Taz.
Team Taz, yeah.
Because I'm a big Team Taz guy. I think they need another member in there. I don't think Brian Cage should have left, or they should have did away with him. But Ricky Starks is just going to be a superstar. I think he's already a superstar, and Powerhouse Hobbs is going to be a huge star. I think. Did you see that? I don't know. Did you see the Dante Martin match?
The singles match.
Yes.
Who did he face again?
Dante Martin and Powerhouse Hobbs.
Powerhouse Hobbs. Yeah.
So he tried to do that suicide dive. Hobbs grabbed him by the
Just
throat
caught
and
him.
then threw him into the bed. That was fucking tremendous. I love that.
Yeah. I love even the finisher, the spine buster at the end,
Yes.
to finish it. I just like a good big man that knows how to move, knows how to carry his character as a big man. It's for me, it's interesting. I know you probably won't agree, but I like, we get the hybrid big men, the likes of the Keith Lees that are flying around the ring and able to do that kind of stuff. But there's still nothing better than a big man that just, can cause destruction, sort of thing.
He knows what he can do.
Mm.
He knows his limitations, right? And obviously, Taz is probably taking him under his wing along with a lot of other guys there. But I think he's going to be a big star. And I didn't necessarily not like Dante Martin's performance because they did a good big guy versus small guy match the way it was supposed to be. I mean, Martin sold really well.
Yeah.
Hobbs overpowered him, and didn't sell for him as much as it's because he shouldn't, because he's a bigger guy. He's 300 280 pounds, 6'3", whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Martin's what, 5'10", barely 200,
like
180.
Yeah.
But it was a good match, and it was a good performance. And I think that was the lowest rated segment of the show, they were saying. But I mean, Hobbs is going to be a star. He's going to be up there. I mean, maybe not within a year, maybe 2, maybe 3, but he's going to be up there. He's going to be a star. He's in a good position in the card right now.
And just to end off, before we talk about our main topics today,
Yes.
you said that with obviously Brian Cage leaving, that that someone should possibly join Team Taz. Who would you think that person should be?
Man, I don't know. Like, I wish they would gotten their hands on Jeff Cobb when they could have. And I was in the Austin.
I think you said Jeff Cobb last week. In fact,
yeah, I was in the Austin show where not in 2020, January 2020. It was pre-pandemic. They were in Austin
when he came out with the
at the end. Yeah, when he came out with the Inner Circle, and I really thought that they were going to try to grab him. I would like to see somebody like that, a bigger guy, similar to like a Taz, like a Powerhouse Hobbs, a powerhouse guy, but I just can't. Anybody off the top of my head right now, I can't think of. And anybody out there in free agency, well, yeah, Bronson Reed. Would be absolutely amazing for that with that team.
That's a very good shout. Before we move off Team Taz, I don't know if you've seen this in the last week. We've seen Brian Cage's wife come out and make some comments about how Brian Cage is misused in AEW. They don't know what to do with him. He's a star, but booking has been bad, this, that, and the other. and I believe Brian Cage has possibly also made some comments on his usage in AEW. Firstly, have you seen this? And two, if you haven't, me telling you that, what are your thoughts on Brian Cage's booking and his usage in AEW?
I saw something briefly just a couple of hours ago.
Okay.
Something that apparently his wife is disappointed how he's being used, and
Mm.
I didn't read anything as far as Cage. I don't know if he's made any comments or anything, but yeah. Uh, I mean, I just think I don't think they should have booked him, but then again, it was during the pandemic. I don't think initially when he came in, they should have booked him so hard, so fast.
To win the
They
ladder
put him in the
match.
title picture
Mm.
because they needed to feed somebody to Moxley, I guess, a semi big match or big name, because Cage was well known in
Like
Impact
underground and yeah,
and then
Impact.
in the Indies and so forth, but wasn't really known nationally, like global or globally, like in the
Mm.
mainstream.
Mm.
Uh, so I think there's been some slips up as far as his booking, but I think that would have been more of a reason to keep him with Team Taz because he's not a great promo. Taz is an amazing promo. Ricky Starks is an amazing promo. So there's two guys over there could have done the talking for him.
Mm.
Uh, and now with everybody coming in, it just seems like he's hindsight. I think he's looking into what's going on with all these big names coming in, like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole, potentially Bray Wyatt coming in. It's like, where's he gonna fit on the card? You know,
Yeah.
who is he gonna mesh with? He's a very talented guy. He's built like a fucking brick shit house, and
Mm.
he can move. You know, so how are they going to utilize him now that he's away from Team Taz? I mean, he might be waiting for his contract to go up and maybe try his hand at WWE or something.
Yeah, I think they possibly missed a trick because yeah, obviously he started with him and Taz, and then they started adding names and stuff like that. And let's be honest, Ricky Starks never really needed to be part of Team Taz. The guy's
No.
ready; he's ready to go. But when they put Ricky Starks in, maybe he could have been like their TNT Championship guy, that kind of mid card title, and maybe Brian Cage and Will Hobbs should have maybe went the tag team route. That might
Yeah.
have been something for them. But what's your opinions on Brian Cage's wife coming forward to speak for him, kind of speak on his behalf? Like, do you think that's
Much.
something maybe he sent them to? He might have said to her, "Well, I can't necessarily go and say this. Do you want to mention it?"
It's not the
Or
fair.
like,
It's not. It's that's not the first time. I mean, what? Is she his spokesperson or something? I don't know. But I mean, I remember when he was originally supposed to debut in AEW, which was January of I think it was 2020. He got hurt at an independent show that I was at in Texas,
mm,
in Far Texas, and that's where the injury occurred. He tore his bicep, and it came out that he was supposed to debut. He was supposed to wrestle his last match in Impact. I think it was at a pay per view against Rob Van Dam. He
okay,
couldn't continue in the match because he tore his bicep, and he got hurt at that indie show here in Texas where I was a witness to. They cut the match early because he would appeared to be injured. Well,
mm,
she came out how he was never supposed to debut in AEW and rumors and this and that. I'm like, who the fuck is it? Why can't he come out and speak for himself? You know,
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. He probably obviously maybe he doesn't like to talk to the media outlets or whatever, or I don't think he has much of a presence, social media presence than
yeah,
anybody else. I don't know if he allows her to speak for her, well then fine, what have
mm,
you. But
mm,
I mean, we'd like to hear from Brian Cage himself. But
yeah,
uh,
exactly. Oh, very, very interesting stuff. I mean, I believe she's a wrestler. Am I right in saying that she wrestles herself?
I have I don't know. She might have done some stuff when he was in Lucha Underground. I guess I don't know. I didn't
Mm.
watch trash either. So
And just like Abraham Yusuf Omar is saying here in the chat, he says, "Do you think Brian Cage is going to leave AEW?" I mean, he's looking like at least the first high-profile kind of guy to be able to possibly leave with WWE and their new recruiting policy of wanting to mold guys from athletes, not take on indie wrestlers. I'm not sure if WWE would be the place for him. But at the same time, Vince loves a big guy, so
yeah.
possibly.
Well, I'm surprised that they didn't try to nab him up. I mean, that just seems like the prototype guy that Vince McMahon would want.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I don't
It's
know.
never too late. Now that he's had a bit of public exposure,
Yeah.
it might be better for him, to go into WWE now, maybe depending, what they would have rejected him on in the past. Because I do think I've seen somewhere he did have WWE trials once upon a time. But let's move on. The theme
Okay.
of today's show is all about contracts, contract situations, and what I wanted to talk about today to yourself, Ignacio, and everyone watching along. I watched the media scrums after All Out. Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, Brian Danielson. The first thing I picked up was that these guys all said everyone in AEW is so nice, and for them all to say that, what the hell is going on in WWE that the first minute you come over to a new promotion, the first thing you're kind of wowed about is everyone here is so nice. Like what the hell must the backstage at WWE be like?
Well, I mean, given that AEW, it's a startup, right? So,
Mm,
and Tony Khan's trying to sign all these guys. He's trying to,
please the
because
fans.
they don't have bookers, they don't have writers, right? So he's uh, open ears as far as getting everybody's creative input and so forth, and letting people put their own creativity into things. So that probably has a lot to do with it. That a lot more guys there have a lot more creative freedom on what they do, what they say, and so forth. And WWE, everybody knows, it's no secret. You don't have to be within the WWE inner circle or working with the company knows that everything is heavily scripted,
Produced.
reviewed, criticized before it makes air, right? So I think that's one thing that all these people that are jumping ship are likened to, is that they're able to do their own things as far as be creative with their own characters, their dialogue, and so forth. And in WWE, that's non-existent almost to most
Yeah.
people, right? Um, and everybody knows how certain characters are in WWE as far as the upper echelons up there. Bruce Pritchard, um, John Laurinaitis, and so forth. So the people that work for this company, like Bradshaw, Layfield, Undertaker, all these guys, they're not in WWE anymore. So a lot of people aren't familiar with these characters like Bruce Pritchard. Some are, some aren't. So he's been known to come off a little abrasive and so forth. And he's going to do whatever Vince McMahon does. And if
Yeah.
Vince McMahon say doesn't like nothing, then Bruce Pritchard's going to shit on it too. And then in the AEW, I assume that Tony Khan and the upper echelons over there, the EVPs and so forth, are more inviting and more forthright as far as what's going to happen to them, what they're going to do,
Mm.
and letting them allowed to have more of their creative input.
Yeah. It's what Punk said as well. I think it was Punk's second promo where after he debuted, where he said, "I no longer need to go around saying the voice of the voiceless because people here listen."
Mhm.
So, there's that fight to kind of get your point across and stuff isn't necessarily happening at AEW. BW67 says here in the chat, I think WWE seems to be a lot more insular, 2 to 3 shows, more touring, whereas a lot of AEW are always in the same place. I mean,
That's a good point.
that's a point. That is a point. But I feel like AEW are touring now as well, even though they seem to be picking where they're going very carefully.
Yeah.
And I would like to probably know why these towns are like the chosen ones, sort of thing. Um,
Well,
but yeah, is there any kind of thought behind that?
it's similar to like Flair back in the day in the NWA, before Turner bought it in WCW and so forth. Flair, uh, Dusty, I think, or whatever the guys had mentioned. Well, if Crockett would have stayed in between Chicago and Baltimore, NWA wouldn't have lost that war. They would have still been in existence without WCW or Turner buying them out. So I think AEW's being very smart right now as far as just picking and choosing the markets where they can draw those hardcore fans. And that's why they're
Mm,
always in Chicago, because
okay.
Chicago's maybe arguably the best wrestling town in the States.
Yeah.
And they've proven they've had all their major pay-per-views there. I think Full Gear was supposed to be in St. Louis. I think they pulled out of St. Louis. I don't think it's going to be in St. Louis
They've
anymore.
recently just changed it, but I don't know where they've changed it to. Let me
They
see.
might go to Chicago because Chicago's. I mean, it's if they have a show in Chicago, it's going to get sold out or close to it. So, yeah, they're trying to stay with the markets where they know they can draw the big fans, and slowly trying to venture out to these other markets where they're about to pick up where they're picking up more fandom because of the acquisitions that they're making, like Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole and CM Punk. That's why they decided to have the show at Arthur Ashe, because the fan base there is going to be more familiar with these names. So it's going to draw more attention, draw more fans, draw more, sell more
People.
tickets.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just on Wrestle Talk's website, and they're saying that the show could be moved to Minneapolis slash St. Paul market
Okay.
from St. Louis. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm sure your geography of the states is much better than mine, but yeah,
Well, that's
is
another.
is that
Minnesota's
is
the.
a known place? Is that for wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the Road Warriors, Kurt Hennig, the AWA, Rick Rude. I mean, that's Jesse Ventura. I mean, that's Minnesota's a breeding ground for professional wrestlers. That has been in the past, maybe not so much, excuse me, in recent years, but that's a major avenue for wrestling. And so I don't know if they've had a Dynamite there yet, or an AEW show there as of yet. So that'll be an interesting move. But yeah, they're slowly trying to move into more markets. But like how you said that some towns or cities or regions within the country have been the chosen regions. They've
Yeah,
had a lot of shows in Texas.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Texas is a major wrestling hub also. A lot of the
Mm.
indie talent that you have seen appear on AEW, especially on AEW Dark, if you pay attention. Thunder Rosa, so forth. A lot of major indie talent comes through Texas and has been featured on that show. So that's why they're in Texas a lot.
Yeah,
So yeah, slowly and slowly they're going to be venturing out to see where they can sell out, where they can draw and stick to those markets. And until maybe they sign a little bit more bigger names like Bray Wyatt coming in and so forth, they'll head more towards the Northeast.
yeah, try different places.
Yeah.
BW67 also says they're often in a wrestler's hometown, Cincinnati for Mox and Pillman. The first Dynamite after Full Gear is in Norfolk, Virginia, which isn't far from Hangman's hometown.
Yeah.
And that could be big if, Hangman goes on to beat Kenny Omega at Full Gear, which is kind of what's being predicted right now. Mr. Nobody says Tony Khan is a wannabe Ted Turner. AEW is going to become WWE's bitch, just like WCW. Um, okay, if that's what you think, I guess I guess we'll
He needs to go
see.
back. Well, he needs to go back and watch our show from a couple of weeks ago, because I explained how WWE they're doing something more catastrophic than what AEW is doing. AEW is just grabbing. They're just signing the best talent that's out there right now, and a lot
Yeah,
of people that's going to be the death of them. No, because AEW can always let people go. They'll keep who they need, and they'll keep who's going to produce, and then they'll let go who they need to, and they can go back
yeah,
to WWE or whatever. But you know, WWE is doing more something catastrophic. I'm not going to get into this. Hit the like button, then go back a couple of shows ago and listen to me. Like I said, that they're doing by letting non-wrestling people like Nick Khan make major
make
decisions
decisions.
for their
Yeah,
programming. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I was listening to the media scrum. That was the first main thing I picked out. Just the whole thing of how everyone is so happy about the environment of AEW backstage. The other thing I really picked out and was interested in, and this is where for me, we've talked about this shift is happening, sort of thing. Ruby Soho went into her media scrum, and I'm paraphrasing here. She basically said something along the lines of, um, "Yeah, my her situation was obviously a bit different. She was let go as opposed to her contract ran out, but she enjoyed her time in WWE, made some lifelong friends, and now she's ended up in AEW." Adam Cole. I'm paraphrasing. He went on to say something along the lines of, obviously he was treated very well over his 4 years in NXT in WWE. He had a great conversation with Vince, and yeah, he said he had a great conversation with Vince, and he knew his heart always wanted to come to AEW once they started doing their thing, and he really enjoyed his time in WWE. He never had a bad word to say about NXT or WWE. However, we still see him now in AEW. Brian Danielson, he went as far as saying, I love WWE. He said it in front of the live crowd the other night as well. I love WWE, or I loved my time in the other place. Um, Vince offered me everything. He said Vince offered him like all the money that he would have asked for. Vince offered to let him go and do the G1 in Japan this year. Um, Brian Danielson still left WWE. Like, to me, this is the biggest thing. Like, these guys are being offered probably, millions of dollars contracts. To some state, Daniel Bryan, the forbidden door would have opened for him. Um, it's still not enough. WWE can't hold on to these guys. And at what point, I feel for me, you, the rest of the human race can see, like, if you're running a business and this is happening, alarm bells should be ringing. These are your
Yeah.
top guys walking out, even though you're offering them everything, offering them, most of what they want and stuff. And for you, what, I don't know, why isn't Vince and Co panicking yet?
I mean, I guess just, well, you got to understand that the ego of this man's just got to be off the charts, all over the place. But I mean, Vince McMahon has pulled himself out of the fire more than once.
Yeah.
I mean, he took a risk with WrestleMania. He laid it all on the line in WrestleMania. Everybody knows that. He put all his money up. Everything he invested in was in the first WrestleMania. He got himself out of the early 90s and in the steroid trial. He beat the federal government in that. He pulled himself out of the fire when everybody was making fun of, they had they were showing plumbers on WWE TV and Who and all these ridiculous, and Mantar and all these ridiculous characters and so forth. Pulled him out of the fire, ended up winning the Monday Night Wars. So Vince McMahon in his head thinks he's indestructible and really thinks, even though he would have loved to keep Daniel Bryan, and I don't think he really gave two shits in a fucking holler about Adam Cole. He wanted to make him a fucking manager to Keith Lee. That's what I read.
Yeah,
fucking ridiculous. So I don't really think he really cared about Adam Cole. I really don't think Vince McMahon really cared about CM Punk much anymore. I read that somewhere that even Fox wanted to help sign CM Punk at the last minute to try to draw him, probably to put him on SmackDown, I'm pretty sure. But Vince McMahon, just in his mind, he just thinks that everything's going to be okay. And maybe for the short term, but for the long term, with them coming out and saying, no, we're not going to pay attention to indie talent. We're letting top guys go, or let Adam Cole go. They let Daniel Bryan go, and so on and so on. Excuse me. I really do think that this time that Vince McMahon has lost touch with his company and the wrestling industry in general, sports entertainment industry in general. Now it's come out that Kevin Owens' contract is coming up. That there was that some contracts were reorganized or restructured during the pandemic. So his contract was supposed to come up in 2023, and I think now it's going to be January 2022. What's going on over there? Who misses this shit? Kevin Owens is a big name there. They obviously don't give shit about Kevin Owens anymore. So they're going to let him go, and he's going to go. He's going to go to AEW if they'll take him, which I'm pretty sure they will.
Let's talk about this. So we were gonna, obviously, Kevin Owens is one of the main talking points of this week. Like you said, his contract was restructured. It was supposed to end in 2023, but restructured to end January 31st, 2022, allegedly. Um, Kevin Owens is someone that I can see, and WWE have used him up and down the card, even when he's been a main eventer. He's held the top title, the Universal Championship. They've used him to kind of propel Roman somewhat at the top of this year, give Roman some good wins, and they had some great matches. He's been a mid-card champion, US Intercontinental. He's never won the tag team belts, but he has been used, lower down the card. Like even now, the stuff he's doing with Happy Corbin and stuff like that, and done some comedy kind of related stuff as well. He's a very versatile performer. Will perform anywhere in the card. Will always give it his all. And his contract's coming up. And currently on TV, he's not doing too much. He's got the Happy Corbin stuff, like I said, but I'm just thinking, if you're Kevin Owens, and to be honest, for me, when Kevin Owens re-signed his contract in 2019, obviously AEW was still kind of new, but he would have looked over there and thought, maybe. But even interviews I've seen of Kevin Owens, he's always come across to be like a WWE guy. He said he never watched WCW because he was just a WWE guy. He doesn't know nothing about WCW unless stuff that's been told to him. Um, and I thought when he resigned that contract in 2019, with obviously AEW now in the wings, I thought, okay, he's gonna stick with these guys for the long haul. Um, now I'm not so sure because, like we're saying, a lot of things are changing. He could go over to AEW, and he's probably about mid 30s or so right now. He's still got some time left. Um, it's very hard for me to say, he can be a top guy over there because it's stacked right now for top
Yeah.
guys. But he could be again a very useful person up and down the card, especially to bring experience to some of those younger talents and stuff like that. You could slot him in. Apparently Sami Zayn's contract is coming up soon as well. They could slot those two in together as a tag team. He could do some stuff there. Of course, he could reunite with the Bucks and do their Mount Rushmore stuff. Um, I I just don't feel like WWE can afford to keep letting these guys walk out. Before WWE seemed to be in control, letting people go from their contracts. There's an amount of control that they have, but now these guys are just literally watching their clocks and their calendars on their phone and just be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, 10 days left, 9 days left, 8 days left, and I'm walking out.
Well, yeah, because now there's not more, but now they have a viable competitor, and they are the competition. And Vince McMahon, several people have gone on to say that Vince McMahon was never scared of TNA. Even though with all the talent that went over there, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Scott Steiner, and so forth, a lot of these guys, they were in the twilight of their careers already. Sting,
Some of them passed it.
Yeah, Jeff Hardy, of course, was still in his kind of prime at the time, and Christian Cage and so forth. But for the majority of them, were already in the twilight of their careers. Mick Foley, Ric Flair, so forth. But now you're getting guys nowadays because of, I don't know, the medical science or whatever's out there. I mean, like as we said before, guys, they don't get over until their mid-30s. And now they're healthier more than ever before because of medical science or what have you. And so somebody like Kevin Owens, I think he's my age. I think he's 37 going on 38. And yes, he's had his run with injuries and so forth. But Kevin Owens is somebody who can offer you something, not necessarily in the ring. He's somebody that can be a mouthpiece for somebody if it came down to his in-ring career dwindling down. Sami Zayn also. Sami Zayn would be a tremendous manager for somebody in WWE, AEW, whatever. But I think it just all comes down to, what does Kevin Owens want? Well, I'll speak in regards to Kevin Owens. Is he comfortable, just moving up and down the card, being a utility guy and just having fun in WWE, and, doesn't care about winning titles anymore or this, that, or whatever, and he'll do the Kevin Owens show and comedy stuff? Is he just comfortable with that? Or does he just really wants to see what he can do in AEW against all these up-and-coming stars like Ricky Starks, Darby Allin, et cetera, et cetera? Because he has a history with some of these guys in ROH, right? But, I mean, it just all depends what he wants to do. Is he going to go for the money, or does he just want to prove that he can still go at it in the ring, which he still can? But it's all up to what to do. And it's all up to his health also, because he has had some major injuries.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Kevin Owens at the same time does come across as a man that is very, very family orientated. He wants to provide for his family. And, if WWE put the right numbers on, on the paper, not to say AEW can't, because of course they can, we know that. He may just stay if the check is right. Like you said, Kevin Owens, 37 years old. Adam Cole, 32 years old. And like you said, these are guys that probably, the demographics is saying that, people are peaking mid-30s, late 30s in some cases. Adam Cole's 32.
Yeah. And they wanted to make him a manager. Did you read that? He wanted to make him a manager.
I did. So people are saying, basically, for those that don't know, It was one of many ideas pitched to Adam Cole to make him the manager for Keith Lee on Raw, where they want to make Keith Lee like a monster heel. Now, obviously, my first thought about that whole sentence I just said was just complete rage. Like, you want to keep a top guy, you know, if it wasn't Vince at the helm, this is someone that could easily main event WrestleMania. Yeah, this is a complete top guy that you want to make a manager to another wrestler. And after I calmed down, I just said, okay, this is just complete nonsense. One, if someone wants this, if someone's renegotiating their contract, how can that be the offer you make to them? Oh, would you want to come up to the main roster and be a manager? Like, are you kidding me? Are you disrespecting me? Like, what is that? And you know, I thought again, Keith Lee and Adam Cole would actually kill it together as a duo.
Yeah,
I have no doubt they would do an absolutely brilliant job, but
they would make it work. Yeah.
I don't even think Keith Lee needs it. Does Keith Lee need a manager? He's got bags of charisma himself.
I wasn't a big fan of his promos. He's obviously an intelligent guy and he's
Mm.
very good at articulating himself and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
I don't think his promos were exactly on par,
Mm.
but I think maybe pairing him up with an Adam Cole, I think that's what they were thinking. Well, this guy, he's got the charisma. His promos aren't where we want him to be at. Maybe we pair him up with Adam Cole. That'll make him better. But the whole
Yeah,
idea to begin with is fucking ridiculous. I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
probably when the light bulb went out in Adam Cole's head was like, I'm having a meeting with this guy and he wants to bring me up to make me a fucking manager, cut my hair and be a mouthpiece. And, you know, they want to make me the next Bobby Heenan or whatever.
They were gonna change his name as well because of confusion with
Yeah,
him and Michael Cole. Like,
that was
what?
disastrous. And that's disastrous. And he, like you said, he's 32 years old. He's got a lot left in the tank. He's got at least, if he stays healthy, another good 5 to 8 years, maybe 10 in him. And then afterwards, if he wants to be, could he have done it? Yeah, he could have done it. I mean,
Mm.
nobody's probably a better talker than maybe CM Punk and a few other guys and see it
Yeah,
than Adam Cole. I mean, Adam Cole's a great promo. He could have done it and could have helped Keith Lee, but I mean, he wanted to perform. He wants to be in the ring where he's best at right now. And so obviously, that's the only place to do that would have been AEW
yeah.
because you know they were gonna make him a heater for Keith Lee, and I don't think they would have been a bad pairing also. But didn't you throw in the idea of why are you gonna make Keith Lee a fucking heel? You just had this guy come out on social media, tell his sob story, and not saying it was bad, but tell his story on I was sick, I had a heart condition, you know, I was very ill. That's textbook. You should have capitalized on that and made him a big sympathetic baby face. And they missed the. Don't these people watch fucking wrestling? That's my question. Jesus
He's
Christ.
not even on TV. Look at everything you've just said, and I'm thinking as you're speaking, I'm thinking, okay, they're planning to turn him to this heel. But even then, he's not even on TV. The week after that, he put out that social media video. You give him a match, test the reaction of the crowd. You know,
Man.
are people still very sympathetic and want to see more Keith Lee? Cool. Then we might have a potential someone here that we can move up the card or do this and that with. Nothing, and it's just like for me, uh, like they said, it's one of many ideas given to Adam Cole to stay. Like, I need you to stay here. I don't want you to go to the other company. Please be a manager on my shirt. Like, yeah, like you said, the light bulb moment. That's it. I'm gone. I'm out of here because you guys don't get it. You clearly don't get it. If that's what you had to me, if that's you honestly had the courage to come to me and to tell me to be a manager, no, I'm out of here.
And man, I know in recent reports, and you know, I'm pretty sure Wrestling Republic came out and they said wish good health to Triple H and so forth.
Yeah, of course.
But damn, I bet Triple H watched All Out and saw fucking Adam Cole and Brian Danielson
Brian
debut,
Danielson. Yeah,
and he fucking shit himself
yeah,
because
yeah,
damn, what could be.
yeah. I mean, I still feel very bad for Triple H in all of this. Like we said a couple of weeks ago, looking at it now in hindsight, Triple H never created stars for Vince. And he should never be creating stars for one man. He's creating stars for the company, for
Yeah.
the universe, the WWE universe. But he never created stars for Vince, and that's ultimately where this whole restructuring of NXT has come from now. And some of these guys leaving is definitely, contributing factor to that. Um, last but not least, on Kevin Owens, do you think come January, if it is true his contract ends in January, and you know, what do you think his future is? Do you think he would stay, or do you think he leaves?
Well, like I said, like I kind of mentioned before, it just all depends what he really wants to do. If you, my opinion is, and it just seems like as he's falling down the card and so forth, and they're having him do more comedy stuff or the Kevin
Yeah.
Owens show stuff as time goes on, and they have him getting bitch slapped by Happy Corbin.
Yeah.
I don't think Kevin Owens wants to be fucking embarrassed like that. I think I think
Yeah.
maybe he still thinks he has something
To
left in the
offer.
tank, which I believe he does. Who knows how much longer? Like I said, his health will hold up. I mean, he's not in the shape that Brian Danielson and CM Punk and Adam Cole is. I mean, he's always
He never has been though. Let's
been
be honest.
yeah, but so given that and then some issues he's had health wise with his knees and stuff, uh, I don't think maybe his in ring career is kind of coming to a close as far as that. I'm talking about maybe he has 2 or 3 years left in him.
Mm.
But so does he want to do that in WWE or does he want to do that in AEW? I think he sees everybody's looking at AEW right now as the hot hand. I
Yeah.
think he sees the talent over there. He's been in the ring with Brian
A lot of them.
Danielson and
Yeah.
Adam Cole, and he's been in those, so he can have good matches with those guys. But I think maybe if he can be one of those where he sees like a Darby Allin, like a Ricky Starks, like a Powerhouse Hobbs and Brian Pillman Jr. help build those guys. And not only that, I mean, he's a good promo guy. And he can, I think Kevin Owens is somebody who can be maybe like a good producer or something.
Yeah, yeah, that you're true. But just to piss you off, if we do get Kevin Owens to AEW, we're probably getting a Festival of Friendship part 2 with Chris
Uh,
Jericho.
no, you know what? No, 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 no. Hey, I agree with man. Was it? He came on the podcast. I agree with Jericho that year they were doing that deal with him and Kevin Owens that they should have main evented WrestleMania, and
100%,
they should have
100%.
put the belt on. I think Jericho said that they were going to put the Universal title on him,
Yeah.
and I was all for that because they had a
Hmm.
good program going, and I think the match they had at that WrestleMania, I think it was 33, was a little bit lackluster because Chris
Yeah.
Jericho was already discouraged about
It was
what the plan
deflated.
was, that they
Hmm.
were gonna give it to fucking Goldberg and whatever and all this stuff. But
And then
I'm
they
off.
ended
I
up
was all for
wrestling
it
for the
then.
US title.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
and I was all for it then, but now I just think it was just fucking. You want more Chris Jericho on TV? Everybody in Wrestling Republic wants more fucking Chris Jericho on TV, and I'm tired of it.
Oh, I definitely think if we did see Kevin Owens there or Kevin Steen, they will run that back some way, some form. They probably will. They probably make it better because the chains are off and they can do maybe
Nah.
some different stuff. But let's move on to our last topic of the day before our highlights of the week. Um, apparently, and I haven't checked this myself, so please forgive me if I'm incorrect. But apparently, the SmackDown, apart from Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, and that ongoing story, there has been no SmackDown women's match for the past 2 to 3 weeks of TV. So much so it's pissed off a lot of the women backstage. There was tweets from Zelina Vega, and there's a whole other story with Zelina Vega. And this past weekend, obviously with the 9/11, her and her father passing away 20 years ago in those terrorist attacks. But Zelina Vega, Natalia, Liv Morgan, Naomi, I think there was maybe Carmella as well, all tweeting the fact that they're pretty much. I think what was even they went as far as to kind of tell them, "Oh, you guys have a match on the night." They get all ready, and then their match got actually pulled. And it's not just being pulled. I think for everyone, this is MSG. This is a pretty big deal to perform in MSG, get the opportunity to perform in MSG. And yeah, like I said, even before this past week, they hadn't been on the show at least for another week before that. Also, it's like, and AEW have been, criminal to this as well. Why are these companies struggling to tell like another story away from the title? We always get the women's champion on and her challenger, on the show, but why are we unable to tell another story within the women's division? Do you see what I mean? That can at least get these other women on the show.
I do, but with the exception of those group of women that you mentioned,
Mm.
other than Natalia, they were on the show because they suck. They shouldn't be on the fucking show. You know, Selena Vega, it won to talk. You came back. What did they promise her that she was going to be on the top? That she was going to be champion or
Yeah,
whatever? What did
I
they
don't
think
know.
Selena Vega was going to do? What did she think she was going to do? I'm more than sure she got an offer from AEW. She didn't take it. She wanted to take the fucking money, so just eat it, right?
Mm,
Don't complain. You're
mm,
where
mm,
you're
mm.
at, where you're at. You know, she can work. She's a good talent. She can work in the ring. She's a great talker. They have her stooging to Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. The talent that they're featuring on the show deserves to be on the show.
Mm.
Now going back to how come they can't tell another story other than what's being portrayed like around the title picture,
Title.
right? Is that
Yeah,
what you asked? There's only so much TV time
that's
allotted on
true.
the show,
That is
and you know, the women within, and I talk about within WWE because the women in WWE have the loudest voice in women's wrestling,
true. Mm.
right? They're WWE does women's division wrestling, even though it's kind of like on a downslope or hitting stagnant right now. They do women's wrestling right now probably better than anybody else.
Yeah.
But my take on it is that they've cried before about how come we're not featured more, how come we don't have more TV time. You know, they believe that they can be just as good as the men. The top women believe that,
Hmm.
but there's not that many women on the top.
Yeah.
You got Charlotte, Becky, Bailey, the four horsewomen, Sasha, and then you got a few others. We got Bianca, and
Yeah.
maybe that's it. I don't know.
I,
Maybe that's
I
it.
mean,
That's
there's
my
they
opinion.
Asuka. Asuka hasn't been
Okay,
Asuka,
yeah, yes. You
Shayna
got okay.
Baszler,
You got
but they don't seem to like Shayna Baszler.
so you got 6 or 7, right? And that's it. And then
Mm.
you got some women in NXT. Women's wrestling, I'm sorry to say, just like any other sport, women's wrestling doesn't sell.
It's not as lucrative.
It doesn't sell. So if they think they're so look, and I just made this sound too abrasive to say this, if they think they're so badass, then give them their own fucking show, and let's see
Yeah.
how they do.
Yeah.
It would flop. So there's only so much TV time that can be allotted to tell all these stories, and they want to feature the champion, they want to feature the title, they want the main story to be around the title. So that's why the title gets featured, and that's why only the top women who deserve to be on the show get featured around the title.
Mm. I mean, I definitely hear everything you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. Um, if I were to counter it, I would say that NXT definitely always managed to put on more than one women's segment on the show, and that might be because there's better women's talents in NXT. That might just because
There is,
NXT
yeah.
is a better show, really and truly, than a lot of the stuff that happens on main roster, week to week. NXT's probably more planned out, in terms of week to week and how things tie up. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the same time, like you said, obviously, if you're not good enough, then that's another reason, I guess. But
Well, it's another indictment on WWE's failure
develop.
to build more women's talent.
Mm,
Bianca Belair's the latest example, and then look what happened to her. They shut her down, or they kind of cooled her jets a little bit at SummerSlam. And so, what are you going to do? Alexa Bliss, who went from having the lowest segment in Raw history, and she eventually learned how to work a little bit. But
mm,
look at the fucking gimmick they've thrown at her,
yeah,
which she's great at. But we're not making horror B movies here. This is
yeah.
supposed to be wrestling, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's,
it's just
it's
another
problems by WWE's own creation.
it's another story of yes, it's another indictment and story reinforcing the idea is once they get up to the main roster, their jets are cooled,
Mm,
they flatline. And
mm,
Charlotte's gonna stay Charlotte. Charlotte's gonna remain on top because she's Charlotte Flair. She's the best that's ever lived. Becky's already established her personality and storm, even though I think they're going the wrong direction now with her. She's established herself. Bailey established herself, and before she got injured, she was on the downturn. They were making her do goofy shit.
Yeah.
So this women's division for WWE, that's why I said it's the voice of all of women's wrestling, but it's also in a downturn right now. So that's why they're not featured right now, because they're shooting themselves in the foot by giving all these stupid, goofy, creative characters and dialogue and creative.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's a shame because, like you said, really and truly, it probably is the best women's division in the world,
Yeah.
WWE, NXT, but it's just the booking is just an absolute joke. But before we run out of time here in the last 5-10 minutes, before we wrap up the show, let's talk about our highlights of the week. Um, you said you had something to say. I know you decided your highlight of the week pretty early on this week. So what is it? What give it to us?
Well, uh, the wrestling world has gone completely insane with, and I'm talking about not only fans alike, but veterans of the industry like Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. And recently I read Booker T about this uh, lucha weirdos and young fucks match that happened at
Don't
All
do
Out.
this.
It was embarrassing. It was everything that's wrong with wrestling today. Anybody involved in that match, I'm talking about the performers, the referee, the managers, the producers, the announcers should be fucking fired and banned from performing in wrestling, sports entertainment industry for life. I mean, I'm ashamed of Jim Ross. And Jim Ross came out and said that this is the greatest tag team match he's ever seen. Jim Ross has seen more tag team matches and forgotten more tag team matches than we'll ever dream of, probably. The Midnight Express, the Horsemen, the Road Warriors, the Heart Foundation, whatever. And you're calling this match the greatest tag team match of all time. Tony Schiavone, I've lost whatever little respect I had for him to begin with as an announcer now. And same goes for Jim Ross. This is insane. Your Uncle Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, it doesn't fucking, they called this the greatest cage match of all time. These people have gone mad. They're insane. 3 years from now, if he's still with us, which I hope he is, Jim Ross is going to be on a podcast telling everybody, I just said it because I was taking the fucking money. I guarantee you he cannot honestly in his heart of hearts think that this was the best match of all time. It was ridiculous. It was humiliating. It's no selling, 24,000 super kicks. Nobody selling shit. Dumb
Come on.
costumes.
So where's your highlight here? What
Oh,
what's your highlight about
so then my
this?
highlight came when I thought all of tag team wrestling was done for good. On Tuesday night, I turn into NXT and I see Diamond Mind, which
Okay.
I see
Oh, the
Diamond.
brothers.
I see Diamond Mind, and I like Diamond Mind, even though I've already thought they screwed the pooch with them because they come out and they're trying to come off of legit shooters, and they have Roderick Strong,
Mm.
and I like the manager. And but then they had him fucking lose to Dragunov, which is I don't
Yeah.
have a problem with. But they said then they come out, well, it's because he's a heavyweight and Roddy's a cruiserweight.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I'm like,
They're
all
both the
right.
same size.
So, but then I like the characters. I like the where they were going with it. Then they have the Asian fellow who hasn't wrestled a match yet, but
Mm.
we'll
I
see
think
what he can do.
he's meant to be the coach.
Okay,
So mm.
there you go. All right, and then they have these two gargantuans come out, the Creed brothers, and I said,
Brilliant.
well, let's see what they got, whatever. And it was it was like watching the Steiner brothers. They were
It was amazing.
absolutely fucking amazing.
It was amazing.
I tried to go back on Hulu because if I don't catch NXT all of it, or if I miss it, I watch it back on Hulu.
Mm.
But they take certain segments out to cut
Mm.
down the show for streaming, I guess for streaming purposes, whatever. They didn't have them back. They cut that segment out.
Oh, really?
They were fucking amazing,
They were very
tremendous.
good.
It was
Yeah.
absolutely a breath of fresh air. So there's still hope for tag team wrestling. And if ABW can get their head out of their ass, they'll have FTR on the show more often. Fuck.
Well, let me just say, my highlight of the week was Lucha Bros versus Young
Oh,
Bucks.
fuck.
I thought that match was and we spoke about this last week. We knew this was going to be my cup of tea and not your cup of tea, but I just thought it was just super entertaining. And I watched the pay-per-view in a bar, like a watch party, and the place went absolutely crazy. I went with some casual fans amongst other wrestling fans as well, and this was obviously the one thing that kind of grabbed their attention, and it was
It was
wild. And
poisoning their minds, poisoning their minds.
of course, like anyone that knows pro wrestling can easily say that this isn't pro wrestling at its core, but I thought it was good fun. I thought it was, yeah, I thought even the ending I thought was pretty cool, with Penta going to his daughters and stuff like that. That was my highlight of the week, my early one. But what I will say, another one, if you like, honorary mention, Mick Foley obviously this week has come out and made some comments about WWE, that WWE have a problem, that WWE is no longer the destination for people to want to go and aspire to. It's AEW. That's the cool product. And obviously, I just want to, I'm no one in the grand scheme of things, but I want to say well done to Mick Foley for
Yeah.
coming out and saying the truth, because it has rubbed people up the wrong way. There's now reports that WWE aren't impressed with what he said, but we're not blind. He's not blind. The rest of us aren't blind. And for a legend of the company, I'm sure he's a Hall of Famer, has to come out and say that. Um, yeah,
Well,
it's,
because
it's saying something.
because Foley doesn't, because Foley's a fan. He's
Yes,
always said that he's a fan before
yes,
anything else. He's a fan before he's a wrestler, manager, spokesperson, whatever. He's a fan first. So he's a very intelligent individual. That's widely known.
yeah,
So he knows what he's talking about, and
100.
he's 100% saying what a lot of people it's on their mind. Not like Booker T, who comes out and says he tried to downplay CM Punk's promo and all this shit, and you're still getting fucking paid by them, and you're
Paid
still
by
on their
them.
show. So
But funny
don't.
enough, Booker T came out afterwards and said Foley is right about everything he said, and we need to get our ass in gear. That was his words. So, I mean,
Well, he also came out and said that the Lucha Bros is the best tag team in the industry. I'm fucking full of shit.
I mean, let's back to Mick Foley.
Yeah,
I just think that someone again that could easily be on WWE's books at any time. You
yeah,
know, he's basically said, screw your check. Like, I'm a wrestling fan, like you said, and
yeah.
these guys are getting it right now, and you're not, and you need to fix up. So just massive respect to Foley for coming out and saying that, and that's what is my highlight of the week. But we have run out of time here. Thanks for everyone that's joined us in the live chat, everyone that's going to watch this back. We hope you enjoyed this week's show, talking about all the contract situations and all out, a really fun pay-per-view. Guys, please remember to smash the like button on your way out, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Wrestling Republic, on YouTube. Ignacio, any last words before we get out of here?
Nothing much. It's just get ready for another big week in wrestling, and just smash that like button, and don't be afraid to comment. Hit me up, hit Meeks up, and see you next week.
That's it. We'll see you next week, guys. Same time, same place. Take care.